let me explain what you're in. This is an olive press. This is probably Canaanite. Okay? The Edomites probably use this as well, but this is probably Canaanite even before that, but definitely Edomite and Hellenistic as well. So the Greeks were here, the Edomites were here, and so on. Now let me describe this a little bit for you, and that is, when you have an olive press, the Hebrew word for press is gat. Say gat. Gat. It's a press. Here's what they would do. They would get the olives in the fall, because they're harvested in September and October. They would be all over these places. They would go out there and bring the olives in here, and more than likely they would either have a man, probably not a man doing this, probably a donkey. And you'll notice that this stone here, okay, that's okay. You have this stone in this little bowl, which is attached to that big log going out to this side. And more than likely, here you would have your donkey attached somehow by a yoke, and they would probably blindfold the poor donkey and put a little carrot in front of his face. And you go round and round and round and round, and they would just take the olives, put them in there to break their skins. Because you know the skins on an olive are hard. Because they want to break that. They break those out, and they would scoop them up, and they would put them in burlap bags. Because they would cut them up. They would take them, and that's not the press. This is part of the pressing process. So they bring them into the gat. They would take them down here, and they would bring them down into this area. And they would put them in kind of burlap bags. Now the burlap bags, if you take a look on the left side, there is, well, you can see on the left side and the right side, there are two of these indentations through that wall, and on the left side they have a cedar log, actually a cypress, not a cedar log stuck into the back wall with a hole. They have that in there, and that log is stuck in there pretty well. But can you see the bags that they have as a model down there? In that little room back there? All the olives would be put in that bag, all the bulk and everything. Okay, they would put them in there after their skins were cracked. And then they would take those weights, which are 800 pounds apiece. I don't know how many men would have to lift that. They would lift those things, and then the log would start crushing the the olives. Okay? Slowly but surely. Now the first olive oil that comes out is the pure stuff. They would need the best olive oil, and the rest of it after that. Now let's take a look at John 18, verses 1 through 2. And if you could, James, you have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where was a garden to which he entered, and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus oftentimes restored there with his disciples.
Resorted there. Now, a couple of things. This is important so you understand the culture. He went across the Kidron Brook to a garden. It's a Hebrew word that is associated, it's a Greek word that's associated with a Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is gan. Say gan.
Gan.
Now, is a gan a garden? Yes, it is, but it's a very special garden. A gan is a terraced place for growing olive trees. Mount of Olives. It's a factory. This hill grew olive trees on a terraced garden. It's a gan. The Greek word, you imply like a garden with flowers and benches and places you went for picnics. And you had little boat rides. I'm sorry, it wasn't. This is a manufacturing place. The second thing is, okay, it says where Jesus went many times. What do Jewish people do every year, 3 times a year?
Go to the temple?
Yeah, why?
Feast?
Feasts. They're required to go there 3 times at the 3 feasts. The 3 feasts that are required are? Passover? Shavuot? No. Sukkot. Sukkot. Those are the 3. Sukkot's in the fall, Passover and Shavuot are in the spring. Okay? So Jesus is, let's say he's 30. How many times has he been there? 120 times. His parents. To Jerusalem. Coming here, it says Jesus was here on a regular basis. Jerusalem is a city, the old city. You'll be in the old city. That's as big as it was. 35,000 people. That's it. Guess where they camped out? The Mount of Olives. And Jesus hung out there a lot. Why? What a good place to camp. Passover? Shavuot was just a couple of weeks ago. Look, can you imagine camping out at night? Remember how cool it was last night? Yeah, a couple of blankets and so you're fine. Build a little fire. Be with your friends. Cook a little kosher meat. Oh, you can have a good time. Okay? So I'm saying, were there any bugs last night? None. This is pleasant weather. This is a pleasant place to camp out. So the thing is that when you read that story, understand the culture. He just didn't go there it's a good place to pray too if there's nobody around. But when he did this, the night of his Seder, when he goes out there, this is RV City. I'm serious. There's just thousands of people up there, and he's trying to find a quiet place to pray. And Judas knew where he's going. Why? He's been with the guy for 3 years. 12 times already. This is probably the 12th time. Okay. Now let's go to Mark 14. Who's got Mark 14?
Me.
Okay. Verses 32 to 33.
They came to a place named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here until I have prayed." And he took with him Peter and James and John, and began to be very distressed and troubled.
Now let's do this. Matthew 26, verse 36. So Zach, Matthew 26, verse 36.
Then Yeshua came with them to the place called Gethsemane, and said to the taught ones, "Sit here while I go over there and pray."
Okay, now you've got the verses. That was written in English from the Greek, but they spoke Hebrew. They were at a gan, not a garden. A terrace place. Now think about this logically. If you're a business person and you are into the olive business, do you want your workers harvesting olives and carrying them up the bag, with these bags, up the steep hill of Mount of Olives? Or do you want them to harvest the olives on the guns and walk down? Walk down. Makes sense, yes? So at the bottom, what should you find at the bottom if you're an olive grower and you produce olive oil? One of these, right? Got Shemineem. This is a got Shemineem. A press for oils. What's the only oil that they press? Olives. Got Shemineem. Got Shemineem. Gethsemane. Gethsemane. Got Shemineem. Jesus went to a Got Shemineem to pray. Because it's too darn crowded on the Mount of Olives to pray. Because everybody's camping out and it's Passover. He probably knew the guy that owned it. Where's he going to go to pray that it's quiet?
Wow.
Got Shemineem. Now, was he in one? We don't know. We really don't know. My suspicion is yes, based upon the next thing I want to do, but it's a quiet place. Maybe he had Peter and James and John sitting right over here and said, "Please, you guys stay over here. I'm going to go down and pray." Or maybe here, stay here. I'm going to go down here and pray. Guess what they found at the bottom of the Mount of Olives?
An oil press.
One of these! Right at the bottom. A Gat Shemineem, a big one! And guess what's used for today? A group of monastic monks have turned it into an underground chapel.
Wow.
When you go down there, you can't even tell it was a Gat Shemineem. So 2 archaeologists asked the monastic order, "Can we go in there? Please." And guess what they found? 2 of those. And holes in the back wall where the cedar logs would have been put in. The rest of it, they saw some of the trenches. Everything else is gone. It's an olive press, and they found one of these. Above here, if you can see, there's a hole.
Yeah.
You need air circulation to process olives. It has to be done at a certain temperature. And at the top of this, they found one of those that's closed off today. When I take you to the Mount of Olives, I want you to see this. This is why I want you to see this, because this is what I understand the deep message. And understand it's deeper and richer and bigger than you ever thought as we come back to our Jewish roots of our faith. That's a really important thing. Because there's no place called Gethsemane. It doesn't exist.